Hey, hey, hey. It's Rebecca Simon Peter with Leadership Mojo, and I'm really glad to be with you today. It's been a while since I've been here, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about one of the latest trends in leadership that we can learn a lot from. I'm talking Jeopardy, Jeopardy. Yes, the game show. I don't know if you're a Jeopardy fan or not, but I got started watching Jeopardy because my parents watched it. And I mean, I watched it as a kid, but then I really started watching it when I would go visit my parents. They're watching Jeopardy. We got in the habit. I like calling out the names and the answers. And then I grew strangely attached to Alex Trebek. And when he passed, I had just read his autobiography. I was missing Alex. So, like the rest of the country, maybe the world, some of the world, I watched with great anticipation to see who is the next Jeopardy host going to be. Now, you may know, but they planned for intentional interims. And as I watched this process of intentional hosts, I was going to say pastors, but hosts, it really occurred to me that we in the church have to be careful to really notice, are we playing Jeopardy with our congregations? Because watching what Jeopardy's been up to, they've had some blunders and they have really captured outsized attention. Now, if you're a church leader, you know that sometimes blunders in the church capture outsized attention. Things that shouldn't blow up, blow up. Things that really shouldn't make that big of a difference can make a very big difference. And so I want us to look at church leadership through the lens of Jeopardy and see what we can learn. So the first thing, if we don't want to play Jeopardy with our congregations, the future of the church, you have to avoid unintentional interims. Jeopardy planned for 16 guest hosts that would guest host for either a 1 week segment or 2 week segment. Started off with Ken Jennings, who was the winningest Jeopardy champion, and then Mike Richards, who was the producer, the executive producer of the show. And he was great with the audience and he was great with the contestants, but he was not great with his social media presence. And he was not great with female employees at previous game show hosts that he had executive produced. So avoid unintentional interims, because that's the first point I want to make. Because like when you've got somebody like Alex Trebek that was there like 36 seasons, started the show, you're not just going to stick in Joe Schmo or Jane Schmo and think, oh yeah, they're going to take off. So they were really good about that, about understanding that they needed to have intentional guest hosts so that the viewing community, the audience, could actually get used to the idea of seeing different people there. And those different guest hosts also played tribute to Alex Trebek. So there was this process of grieving Alex, acknowledging Alex, and then slowly moving away from Alex and watching Alex also, or the space that he had occupied sort of reflected and refracted through different leaders. What a brilliant move that was. All kinds of people guest hosted. They had sports figures, they had commentators, they had news hosts, they had TV doctors, they had doctors who were also on TV. They had just a variety of people, Jeopardy champions, etc. Brilliant move. In order for you to not play Jeopardy with the future of your church, please make sure there are intentional interims so that you're avoiding unintentional interims. Now, when you get an unintentional interim in a church, what happens is that it delays the ability of the congregation to regain its footing and to move forward, to press forward, to build momentum, and to have confidence in itself. So you don't want unintentional interims. You want to actually plan an intentional process. And that holds true whether the previous pastor was a fabulous pastor or a terrible pastor, because either way, there's something for the congregation to actually heal from and to move on from so that they can move into their new future. Now, the other way to avoid an unintentional interim is for the departing leader, whether it's Alex Trebek or Reverend so-and-so, to say goodbye and to pave the way for the next person. Alex did a really good job of saying goodbye. And people knew because of his, he was out there about what was going on with him. It wasn't just like, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you I've got pancreatic cancer. He told people what was happening. So that's part of what paves the way for a good transition is when the outgoing leader makes it clear that they're leaving and why, framing it positively and really connecting with the people to say goodbye. Now, the thing that Jeopardy did not do great was to vet the next leader. Like I was saying, Mike Richards was terrific. He was great with the contestants, he was great with the material, he was great with the audience, but he was not great behind the scenes. He had social media, he had a podcast that was really offensive, especially around women. Now, he might have done it in good fun. He said he had, people that understood the ethos of it all. Whatever. Once that's out into the public, it's no longer owned by the person who put it out there. It now belongs to the public. He did not do a good job with that. He also is in litigation for ways that he had interacted with female employees of the previous shows. Not good. Sexism, discrimination. He needed to be vetted more thoroughly. They did the vetting, watching the tapes, how he was on the show. They didn't do the background checks. Okay. That needs to be done in the church. Vet your leaders. Vet your leaders. You've got to make sure that the people that are coming into your congregation, whether they're lay leaders or they're pastoral leaders, whether they're paid or volunteer, you got to make sure at some level that they're really fit for the job. Not just that they can handle the work in front of them, but that their reputation, the way they live their life, their personal life and their professional life, their personal and their public personas are integrated. They're in sync, that this is a person who has integrity. Because your leaders represent not only the church, but Jesus, Christianity, and the gospel. Fair or unfair, that's how it is. So what's happening on social media? Does that person present themselves on social media like they present themselves in the church? You got to check that stuff. Because when people put that stuff out there on social media, they're basically saying, here's who I am. Here's what I want you to know about me. Vet your leaders. Now, I'm probably going to get into some pushback here for saying this, but this is the age we live in, people. We have to really acknowledge that. There was a time way back when where your personal life was actually quite anonymous. It's not the case anymore. And especially when people put stuff on social media, they're saying, I don't want to be anonymous. I want you to know what I think, what I feel, etc. So pay attention to all of that. Now, the last thing that is really important, if you don't want to play Jeopardy with the future of your congregation, is to read the culture right. Leaders exemplify the culture. Now, that's one of the reasons that one of the guest hosts, Dr. Mehmet Oz, I'm not sure if I pronounced his first name correctly, but that's one of the reasons he was not a fit. He was a problem as a guest host. Again, he had a great personality. He was good with the contestants, but his medical reputation was tainted. Here he is, Dr. Oz, and his medical reputation was tainted by the suspect advice that he had dispensed in some unproven products that he sold. And Jeopardy fans cried foul. This is a show where integrity is everything. You got to get the right answer, right? You have to be able to discern what's the right answer, what's the wrong answer. Can you do that if in your own professional life you are forwarding suspect advice and unproven products? And the fans would have none of it. They called for his ouster, and that happened. So a lot of troubles happen when a leader tries to quickly change the culture. Let's think about churches for a second, without building enough trust or without connecting the dots between the past and the present. You can see that in congregations. Somebody's going to come in and they're just going to change everything. Change is good, especially if it's needed, but you got to connect the dots between the past and the present. Now, we could see in the Jeopardy show that Big Bang actor Mayim Bialik, who is a PhD neuroscientist, and Ken Jennings, the winning Jeopardy champion, they took over at the helm. Now, whether they're permanent or not, nobody really knows for sure. Jennings had some social media gaffes as well, and he may not make the final cut. But by having those two, the producers not only capitalize on the show's current culture of integrity, of smarts, right? Because we've got a neuroscientist there, but they expand it by having a highly educated, funny woman who's also good in front of the camera and who happens to be an ethnic minority. So they took the culture that was there and they expanded on it, both by Ken Jennings and Mayim Bialik. So keep that in mind as church leaders are appointed. This is lay church leaders, and this is ordained church leaders. Fairly or unfairly, as I said, you're representative not only of the congregation, but of Christianity, of Jesus, of the gospel. So make sure you're not only vetting leaders, but they are the kind of public representative that really reflects the gospel well, and that their personal life and their public life are in sync together. We don't want to play Jeopardy with the future of the church. There's enough going on that's doing that unwittingly. Let's be smart about how we approach church leadership, succession of church leadership, and see what we can learn from Jeopardy and their public drama. It's there for all of us to see and for all of us to learn from. I'm really passionate about church leadership, and I'm passionate about effective church leadership. So thanks for tuning in to Leadership Mojo. Check out the website at RebeccaSimonPeter.com. I'll be back here next Wednesday afternoon to be with you and to bring the next installment of Leadership Mojo. In the meantime, thanks for those that are watching now and will be watching later. We welcome your comments, your feedback. Are you a Jeopardy fan? What have you learned from watching what the show is doing? What's happening in your congregation? We're interested in all of it, and we look forward to hearing from you. So that's it from Rebecca Simon Peter, Leadership Mojo, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.